paper. Having a couple of peer-reviewed articles in your bibliography signals to your professor that you've really done the research and you understand that you need high quality, you need authoritative information. And usually peer-reviewed articles are exactly that, okay? Now think of it as a business, right? So let's say you work for any news magazine out there. I'm not going to name any, but you know, there are a few out there in the newsstand, right? And your editor tells you, you, journalist, or you, analyst, go and write me an article about this issue, okay? And you go out, you find information, and you write an article, submit it back to your publisher, your editor, and you know, they review it and say, oh no, it's not interesting enough. Give me more of a human angle, or give me more data, or go ask the environmental folks what they think, because we need a little bit more contention. And you tweak it based on the fact that you want this article to be interesting and to help sell copies of your magazine. Now, when you're a researcher and you're writing peer review articles, what you're trying to do is write science. You're trying to create facts that are of such a high quality that they get inserted into the academic thinking of the world. And the whole writing process and review process is different from the magazine side of things. Okay, so when you're a researcher that's working on a peer review article, you need to make sure it's researched. It uses the best data out there. And if nobody else has the best data for what you're trying to study, you have to generate your own data. Okay, so that means surveys, that means field work, that means a whole lot of things if you can't use data from Statistics Canada or other very, very high quality data sources. Once you've done the research and you've compiled the data, you analyze it and you write your findings, and you try to make it as relevant and as authoritative as possible. It may mean that it's long, it's not that interesting, there are no color pictures, there's a very long bibliography, it uses strange words that the general public may not know about, but that's what it means when you're doing authoritative writing for peer-reviewed articles. Once you're done writing it, you submit it to the journal editorial board, and a set of volunteer experts who also work in other universities around the world will read your paper. They may not know you've written it because sometimes this is an anonymous process, so that really what you focus on is the quality of the source of information, the quality of the reporting, the data that's presented and all that. So they review, thus the peer, colleagues, friends, peer review. They review the paper, make suggestions, and then decide whether or not it's good enough to reflect academic facts or knowledge that is acceptable in the academic world. And then it gets published. It may take years before this happens, the whole process happens, as opposed to a journalist who's working off a deadline to be published in next week's issue of the magazine, right? So two very different editorial process, two very different markets, and two very different look and feel for the final article. And what I can tell you is you don't necessarily have to use 50 scholarly review articles, scholarly peer-reviewed articles. It depends what type of essay you're writing, what kind of work you're doing, but at least a few. And you may also have to use books, which we'll talk about in a second, but at least a few. And I would say between half an article to 2 articles per page of an essay. That's kind of an interesting yardstick if you want to stick to something. Don't hold me to it. Your professor may want more or less, or you may have to use more or less depending on your topic, the length of your essay, the class you're doing it for. I mean, there are a lot of variables that you can, you can use to determine how many you need. But at least say a few, because that puts you in that, puts you that much higher up in the grade scale, because you're signaling to your professor that you've gone that extra little mile, right? That other students in your class may not have gone to, but that's up to you. You don't have to do anything. It's up to you, right? But I would do it. Now, that's for the peer-reviewed side of things. The next step, which may take years or few years, is people writing books about the issues, statistics being compiled at the national level, encyclopedias being upgraded to reflect the events that have happened. Also, governments may issue government reports and may start studying things and start a commission to determine certain outcomes, and you may want to use the reports that come out of that process Also, market reports could be issued. Sometimes, I mean, I put them in the last category because it could take a while before companies produce market reports. They could happen very quickly for phenomena that, you know, is really emergent, and some companies are trying to issue market reports really quickly, but it could also take a while. Annual reports from companies, they're yearly, and they're an incredible source of information, and most of them are either available through the websites of the companies themselves, or we have database systems. We have websites for which we pay a lot of money at the library that you can use to find the annual reports. So the idea here is, depending on when you're coming into the research process, based on the information life cycle of the event, topic, whatever you're doing, you may have no books or encyclopedias that cover the topic because it's just too recent. It happened too quickly, so it hasn't had time to go through the information life cycle. Or you may be able to, you know, look at previous environmental disasters and their impact on business, because then you'll have a coverage of, you know, hurricanes and other tsunamis and other things like that have had an impact. But not necessarily this specific one. So just kind of giving you an insight that you have to think critically about this information life cycle, and you may not find what you need for this specific case, but you may find alternate historical sources. Also, definitely use scholarly journals and articles. That's just a kind of a great thing to put in there. But also use you can use a variety of sources for your assignment, which comes at the end. So be careful, you know, if you want to use newspaper articles, you may actually have hundreds or thousands of them, because if the event you're looking at or concept you're looking at happened a long time ago, you know, you may just have a lot of them. So you may want to look at magazines or peer-reviewed articles or books, because there are just a lot fewer of them.